All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling a piece that, well, it might just change how you think about everything. It's called The Last Economy by Emad Mostaque, and it makes a pretty huge claim. The entire economic game we've been playing our whole lives is about to end, and we've got a very small window to figure out what comes next. The piece kicks off with this line, and man, it's a gut punch. He's not just talking about your job security, he's talking about the very idea of your economic relevance as a human. The source argues this isn't just another market cycle, it's a phased transition, like water turning to ice, a fundamental change in the state of the world.
So, what on earth is an economic inversion? Well, think of it as a moment when what society values most gets completely flipped on its head. And according to the author, we're living through the fourth, the final, and the fastest one in all of human history. This isn't just an update, it's a total system reboot.
And that's really the million-dollar question, right? It's one thing to talk about these huge, abstract historical forces, but the whole point of this work is to connect the dots and show how this massive shift is going to land right in our laps, affecting our work, our lives, and even our sense of purpose.
So to really get a handle on where we're headed, we've got to look back. You can actually see all of human history as a series of these inversions, these moments where the old world breaks because what we value has fundamentally changed.
For most of history, if you had land, you had power. Simple. Then, boom, the Industrial Revolution hits, and suddenly organizing human labor was the most valuable thing. Fast forward to the 70s, and with computers, it wasn't about the workers anymore. It was about owning the capital, the software, the machines. And now, we're in the fourth inversion. Intelligence itself, the one thing we thought was uniquely human, is now a commodity you can copy and paste for free. This is what the source calls the metabolic rift. Just think about it. Every single worker in history, whether it was a person or an ox, needed to eat. It was a metabolic engine. AI is the first non-metabolic worker. It's not just a better tool for us to use. It's a different kind of competitor altogether. And when we're competing against something that doesn't need to live, that changes the entire game. Okay, so before we can build anything new, we've got to tear down the old, rickety foundations. The author identifies what he calls the 7 fatal lies. These are the core beliefs of our current economic system that aren't just a little bit wrong anymore, they are now actively holding us back. Every single economics class starts with the same idea, scarcity. We have limited stuff, and economics is how we divvy it up. But what happens when the most valuable resource, intelligence, suddenly becomes infinite? This is the abundance trap. Our whole system is built for scarcity, so when it sees limitless, free intelligence, it doesn't register it as a miracle. It registers it as a market failure, a disaster. This one is tough to hear. We're all raised to believe that hard work has inherent value, but the source makes a really brutal, purely economic point. When you add up salary, healthcare, office space, and HR, for certain tasks, a human employee actually costs more than the value they produce compared to an AI that just needs electricity. It's a shocking idea, but from a cold, hard numbers perspective, it's becoming true. And this is the question that just hangs in the air after that last point. Seriously, think about it. If a machine can do something just as well as you, or even better, for practically nothing, what is that skill worth on the open market? It's a question that pretty much every knowledge worker is going to have to face. The author has a great name for our obsession with GDP. He calls it the dashboard for insanity. And when you look at it this way, it's hard to disagree. Wikipedia gave humanity an incredible gift of knowledge, but since it put encyclopedia companies out of business, it was a negative for GDP. But a massive hurricane, that creates billions in rebuilding contracts, so GDP goes up. Our main success metric is literally backward. All right, so we've torn down the old ideas. The demolition is done. Now what? What do we build in its place? This is where the source proposes a completely new way to think about value, one that's based not on outdated economic theories, but on the fundamental laws of physics. This is called intelligence theory, and it starts with a basic concept from physics, entropy. That's the natural tendency of everything to fall apart into chaos. So the theory argues that value is simply the opposite of that. It's the creation of order. A business creates value by taking a chaotic market and creating an organized solution. And profit? That's just a temporary measure of how much order you've managed to create.
So if GDP is the dashboard for insanity, what's a better compass? The source offers this, the mind dashboard. Instead of just money, it measures the 4 things that actually make a society healthy and resilient: material capital,
like our environment, intelligence capital, our collective knowledge, network capital, which is basically trust, and diversity, the variety of options that keeps us from breaking.
And here's the kicker. These four things don't just add up, they multiply, which means if any one of them goes to zero, the whole system collapses. It doesn't matter how much material wealth you have if your network capital, your social trust, hit zero. The entire equation equals zero. That's what the source argues happened to the Soviet Union.
So, this all leads to a final, stark choice. The old system is breaking apart, and as it does, we're being funneled toward one of only three possible futures. There's no fourth option. There's no going back to the way things were. This is it.
So here are the options. Path 1 is digital feudalism. That's the default. We just let things happen, and a few giant companies own the AI that runs everything. Path 2 is the Great Fragmentation. This is the fear-based reaction, where every country builds its own AI, throws up digital walls, and we enter a new kind of Cold War. Then there's Path 3, Human Symbiosis. This is the hardest one. It's the one that requires us to actually design a new system on purpose, where AI is a tool to elevate humanity, not replace it.
And so, we land on the final question the author leaves us with, a question for every single one of us. The old world is fading away. That's not really up for debate. The only question is what we do about it. Are you going to mourn what's being lost, or are you going to get to work building what comes next? That's the choice at the very heart of the last economy.